feel like when you go back to some place that you were at when you were younger, that everything is just a lot smaller. But it's awesome that well, my name is Jason, if you don't know who I am, most of you know who I am. And on behalf of the Cork family, I'm just so honored to be here to celebrate Dad. We're going to have a fun night tonight. We're going to cause some trouble, which we were very good at in our time at the New Haven Church. Usually it took place in the Fellowship Hall, for those of you who remember the legendary talent shows of 1990 and 1991. But we've had an awesome day today and yesterday together, and so it's just really fitting that we end this way because there's so many memories in this building of Dad and our family, going all the way back to the 1950s when Mom was baptized here, and then our intermittent being here for lots and lots of celebrations. I can still picture sitting in here, our shirts sticking to the pews in the middle of summer because of the shellac on the pews. But let's start with a word of prayer. Father, I thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to celebrate Dad's life. I thank you for the memories. I thank you for the friends. Thank you for the family that are gathered here tonight. We ask that you bless this evening and everything that happens tonight. Be pleasing in your sight as we celebrate your child, and your son, and our dad, Bob Cork. In Jesus' name, amen. Amen. So a while back I found this paper that my dad wrote to me back in 1991, so I would have been 16, and it would have been right in the middle of earning my wings as a singer here at this church. And it's a note that I treasure. It says, "Be diligent, son, as you sing and act and play the horn, and broaden your horizons, work to God, and be willing to share." And I think we definitely found a lot with Dad, and we're going to share a lot of that tonight. So thank you for coming, thank you for being here. And we're going to start off with a legendary video from a tremendous trip. A tremendous trip, but it was just tremendous back in 2007. Go ahead with the video up.
Thanks.
That's all Jason's doing.
Oh, man.
And look, I even bought these.
Oh, that's absolutely incredible. All of you. Once you left your babies and everything. Oh, man.
Mom said this.
Don't think about it. Don't possibly even think about the three of you. Oh, poor of you.
We'll get your email. I'm gonna have fun.
They said Pam got you this morning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't had s'mores since I was a brownie or something.
All right.
Is there a cover of it?
Can't do it.
There he is.
Can he do it in under 3 minutes?
Sit in.
Under 3 minutes.
Hot shower. The This isn't camping.
It's going on YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh, really?
This year, somebody let something out of Charleston. They kept track of it sometime there, but they felt it right. Oh, it is, but it still happens.
Okay, everything's fine. Thrilling day, total surprise. Wonderful day on the river with my family. Total surprise. Thank you.
My dad is a Hoosier. Am I on, Christine? Yeah. My dad is a Hoosier from Indiana. And in 2009, I took my dad to the Indy 500. It was my first Indy 500, and he had been there before. And what a wonderful trip it was. It was his final trip back to Indiana. And I'll never forget standing next to him singing this song, and it was one of his favorites. Back home in Indiana, and we'd like you to join us in just a moment. This is a Cork production, so we're now going to fill.
Stretch.
We're now going to stretch with a dad joke. A guy went into prison. First night in prison, his new inmate in the prison was with him, and it got late at night. As they're in their cell, they hear out in the hall, 32! And he said, what is that? He said, well, you'll come to know pretty soon that we've been here so long that we've memorized all the jokes, and we know them by number. So all we have to do is say a number, and that's the joke. So the next one came up, 16. Everybody up and down the cell block roared with laughter. And the guy said, wow, that's pretty cool. Can I try it? Yeah, sure, why not? 12. Dead silence. And the guy said, well, what did I do wrong? And he said, it's all in the delivery.
We're going to put the words on the screen for you to sing along to Dad's favorite song, Back Home Again in Indiana. Here we go. Ready? Back home again in Indiana, and it seems that I can see the gleaming candlelight still shining bright through the sycamores for me. The new morn hay sends all its fragrance from the fields I used to roam. When I dream about the moonlight on the Wabash, then I long for my Indiana home. That was very nice. Got a nice choir going here. Any Hoosiers in the audience? No Hoosiers? Very serious group. 12. Let me scoot over here. All right. Well, I'm the youngest, so I get to go first here. 46 years old, and all of a sudden I'm the baby again. Last in a long line of corks. Little bug. So I buy all my glasses from Goggles for You. Super cheap place to go. I highly recommend. And last two pairs I've owned, I've had to switch to progressive lenses. And actually, last pair I got, even the close-up is starting to have So it's only going to get worse from here, right? My eyesight does continue to deteriorate. But over the last few weeks, the coating on my pair of glasses started getting scratched up. I think somehow I wiped it with something that was not appropriate, and so now I have a full scratches on all my glasses, and it was really hard to see out of them. In fact, I didn't realize how bad they were until last Sunday morning. I'm getting ready to lead worship at my church in North Olmsted, Ohio, and the lights are shining in a way that I can barely see anything out of my glasses. I struggled to see the music on my iPad, and when I put my mask back on, of course, then they start fogging up, right? So I kind of felt the whole world closing in on me as I was trying to do very basic things. And as I thought about that, I can't help but wonder of maybe that must have been a little bit of what it must have been like for Dad as he kind of went little by little losing his abilities to do basic things. Normal everyday tasks became harder and harder as his dementia progressed. And this has been a long, difficult journey. And I am happy for him that I believe he is in a better place now. I just want to share a few memories with you in our time together. So I remember one of my earliest memories in 1981 is when we went back to Durand, Illinois for the 4th of July fireworks. And if you've never experienced Midwest fireworks, they are something to behold. Very fancy ground displays. You're so close to the fireworks, you often feel the ash coming on you. Not a whole lot of safety going on there, but that's what I remember about Durand, Illinois fireworks. And I guess Dad won some type of a raffle, and I think it was $100, am I right? $100 to spend in town, and the only place you could really spend it in town was True Value Hardware Store. That's right. So I got to remember, I think I got a Mr. Potato Head. Dan, I think you got the Dagobah playset. Jim, do you remember what you got? The Cantina? Might have been. Rob, do you remember what? You don't remember what you got. And I think Mom got this big pot for a turkey or something like that. But I remember that because I remember right away, Dad could have spent that money a whole bunch of different ways, but he decided to share it with us. And in that spirit, I think that's who Dad was. He always shared everything that he had with his family. But that was a big night. I remember that. And then Sunday mornings, often we would go across the street. I'd wake up really, really early in the morning. Dan would go sometimes, and then as he got older, he didn't go anymore, to help Rick Hine milk his Holstein cows. And got a message from Lena Templeton, formerly Lima Harder, this week that reminded me that we brought the Pathfinders over one Easter morning to Rick Hine's farm. But we went over there every Sunday morning very early, and I got to dip the teats and scrape the aisle and earn a little bit of money, learn the value of hard work and friendship. And I'll never forget the day that it was kind of cold, and there was a big, huge field, and the field would get full of manure with these cows. The cows would just kind of graze out there. And I remember that I just have this picture in my head of Dad being in the middle of the field with these massive boots on and getting his boots stuck in the manure. And getting into a pickle and not knowing how to get out of it. Most important thing I can tell you about my dad tonight, as I know was shared in his letter to us this morning, is that Dad was a sinner in need of a Savior whose name was Jesus. And I want to share with you a short story from his little book, as he used to call it. Do you remember his little book? He used to give these things away all the time. Very proud of it. The Power of Love. And I'll let him tell this part of the story. After I bottomed out in the world, I met a man in Rockford, C.J. Ulrich, who patiently led me into the family of God. This man, who was like a second father, was calm when I shouted and silent when he knew that I was not ready for him to speak. This man prayed with me, wept with me, and helped me find and follow a path to the person of Jesus. It was CJ who gave me the opportunity to work for Prevention Incorporated, and it was Tony Rivera, the director of that inner city ministry, who told me about the warm turkey love of Jesus Christ that had delivered him from bondage to tobacco, alcohol, and heroin. The next day, September 21st, 1976, I took Tony's cure for smoking, the love of Jesus Christ, and his strength At 1:30 in the afternoon, I was delivered, as Tony had been, from bondage to cigarettes and booze, poisons that chained me for 15 years. Still, I did not comprehend the depth of Tony's love until he told me later that his wife had left him when he accepted Christ and that she had since given birth to another man's child. Tony said he was waiting patiently with forgiveness in his heart for his wife to come back, and Tony believed that Jesus would bring her home to him. I often heard Dad tell me that story. And I had the benefit of having a father who gave his life to Christ. And I know it's through that love that he was able to love me and love so many others. Dad always said that the greatest evidence of God is in changed lives, and his was one. So before there was Facebook, Dad shared our family story, often way too many details, in two places. In the annual Christmas letter, remember the one with all the pictures taped on the top? Way before anything digital. And right here, in that pew, every 13th Sabbath. After the ordinance of humility and the breaking of the bread, there would always be a time for testimony. And every time, right, Dad would stand up and share with the congregation how much God blessed him with a tear in his eye. Dad was total right brain and was all heart. He was there in the boat with me when we got third place in the father-son canoe race when I was 10 years old. Now, the fact that there was only 3 boats in the race is immaterial. He was there helping me study for the spelling bee, the town of Orange spelling bee. I won in 5th grade. He helped me prepare for the 6th grade oratorical contest. He was there driving me to voice lessons and Gandermoon's practice. He was there outside my door, listening to me practice, encouraging me to sing, sing, sing. He was there for more performances than I could have ever asked for, often driving 5 hours up and back in the same day to see me sing at Ithaca College. He was there with Mom to greet both of my children, Matthew and Sadie, when they were born in Orlando, Florida. So he was there. He was a dad that was there for so many things growing up. And then I was there to visit my dad in the hospital in Ocala, Florida, the day that he was mugged. I was there by his side the day he shared with me that he was scared about the days ahead as he struggled with the effects of dementia. I was there the day my dad went into a nursing home for the first time. I was there on the plane ride to Connecticut, relocating him to a better long-term care facility. I remember him standing up on the plane, hitting his head right above the seats and saying, "Way to go, Cork." I was there in the canoe with Dad when he picked up a paddle for the last time on Little Pond in Thompson, Connecticut on July 17th, 2014. I was there in the nursing home as 3 precious Pentecostal ladies with long skirts and stringy hair and missing teeth prayed over my dad in tongues and watched as he wept as they ministered to him. And they told me that day, his mind is gone, but his spirit was still there. And that was one of the most beautiful ways that God confirmed for me the assurance of his salvation. I was there a couple weeks ago with my brother Rob, holding his hand when he breathed his last breath. And I will be with him again, because I believe in the resurrection and the life that is to come. So much of who I am in my role as a worship pastor, in my role as a teacher, in my role as a dad and as a husband, I owe to my dad. He taught me how to love and how to live. He taught me how to inspire others. He taught me how to ask for forgiveness and how to be emotionally vulnerable. And I've been thinking about this song for a long time to sing today. And it's not exactly true because it mentions someone playing the piano, but I want you to just hear the sentiment of this song, because it is very true that if I sing, it's because of my dad. You can go ahead. You can bring that volume up a little bit. Thank you. My father's pride was in his hands, the piano was his soul. I watched in wonder as he played show tunes, miles off from rock and roll. What he loved, he taught me. Now music's what I do. And often when I'm writing, in my hands, Dad's there too. If I sing, you are the music. If I fly, you're why I'm good. If my hands can find some magic, you're the one who said they could. When the child who's still inside me finds a song in empty air, where there is joy in making music, it is you who put it there. My dad grew old, his hands grew numb, and now he cannot play. I came to visit. He sat and asked me, how could it be this way? I couldn't find an answer. I played this tune for him instead. My father sat there smiling, for he knew what it said. If I sing, you are the music. If I love, you taught me how. Every day your heart is beating in the man that I am now. If my ears are tuned to wonder, if when I reach the chords are there, if there is joy in making music, it's a joy that we both share. I never told you, it took time till I could see that if I sing, you are the music, and you'll always sing in me. Yes, you'll always live in me.
That's right.
Always was. Orange soda. Yeah. Good evening. Like Jason, I'm Dan Cork. Used to be known as Danny when I spent time in this church. It's great to be here this evening. I too have a lot of memories here. My dad taught me how to be comfortable in front of a group of people, how to be comfortable public speaking. First spoke in front of, behind that pulpit right up there. And behind that pulpit, your knees shake, but nobody can see you, right? So Dad helped me prepare to give my testimony. Dad helped me prepare to give sermons here. And he was inspirational to me in many ways, in my faith and how it's evolved over time and how I've built relationships with people. Each of us knew my dad. Can I lower this a bit, Jason? I also have progressive lenses, right? So this is the thing. Yeah. We age, right? Each of us, can you hear it? Each of us who knew my dad has a story or two to tell, of course. We were each witnesses to and participants in his very rich life journey. As we know, in the words of Henry David Thoreau, Dad sucked the marrow out of life. He truly lived every day to its fullest, not passing up any opportunity to engage with people, to learn something new. Many of Dad's values, his qualities and hobbies have also been important to me in my own life. Dad loved people. He loved the outdoors, as we know, all the pictures of him canoeing. Dad took great pride in the achievements of his children. Although sometimes, as Jason said, we kind of cringed when he brought up our name. You know, how is he going to tell, what is our part in the story? You know, Dan lost a passport when he was in Egypt. Yeah, oh, thanks, Dad. Yeah. So, but always told great stories and always was very proud of us and all of our achievements. Dad also cherished friendships and relationships. He understood that learning a foreign language offered an opportunity into another culture. And he relished every chance to walk into a Chinese restaurant and strike up conversation in Mandarin. And when his eyes would widen with amazement. Sorry, the people's eyes would widen with amazement when they understood that he spoke and understood their language. And I enjoyed the same sort of experience when I'm breaking into Arabic and people like take a step back. Who's this white guy speaking Arabic, right? And so Dad loved that, and I also love those sorts of moments, and because it shows our ability to connect with people in unexpected ways. Dad's worldview changed when he and Mom visited me in Israel and Palestine in 1999. Dad learned about the life experience of Palestinian refugees from the 1948 Arab-Israeli War through my friend Iyad al-Muzayyan, whose father was born in the village of Araqamanshiyah and was forced to flee as a young child with his own family. When Dad visited Iyad's family, he brought with him a little tiny replica of canoe, the cedar strip canoe probably that he had made. And he was so delighted when he gave that model canoe to Iyad's father as a sign of friendship. Dad and the Mukhtar, the village elder, it's not a Klingon word, Rob. Dad and the village elders had so many stories to share over endless glasses of mint tea that sometimes they forgot the need for translation. And Iyad and I were like headaches, like, Dad, slow down. Wait a minute, a little bit for the translation. But they were just so enthusiastic about sharing their experiences. Of course, I learned to translate in that week and a half to two weeks many of Dad's favorite expressions into Arabic. Although, what do you think I am? Chopped liver? Doesn't quite have the same ring to it in Arabic. No, not quite. But they got a kick out of all Dad's expressions. You want fries with that? You snooze, you lose, all of those fun expressions. During that trip, our mother wanted to understand every nuance of, every historical site that we visited in the Holy Land. So all that I had learned through my studies about the history of the ancient history as well as the modern history of the Holy Land. Mom was there writing down every note and capturing every bit of information. But Dad was much more comfortable playing with the cats he met, or the most important thing for him was the chance to engage with every person he met, and as usual. And he was just relished every opportunity to have conversations with shopkeepers, with taxi drivers, with my students in Birzeit, with the Israeli young people that he met in restaurants in Tel Aviv and Haifa. And one morning, that was really special to him. And that was, of course, who he was. He could strike up a conversation with anyone he met. One morning, we crossed the border from El Arub refugee camp near Hebron into Israel. And my dad drove Iyad and his father to the remains of Firqa Minshiyya on the outskirts of the Israeli town called Kiryat Gat. Iyad's father recounted the story of his family's exile, as he pointed out, as he walked through the ruins of the village that day. It was the first time Iyad had been there, to the remains of his village. And Iyad's father pointed out the ubiquitous remains of cacti throughout the village. And of course, the cactus was there. Cactus is a stubborn plant, planted by Palestinian farmers many years ago to keep the wolves and other predators away from the livestock. And despite many attempts to uproot the cactus, it has deep roots. Keeps coming back, and that's one of many pieces of evidence that shows the Palestinian ties to their villages. And as many of you know, Cactus 48 became the name of Dad and Mom's website, where they wrote about their experiences. And as Dad later wrote, inspired by Dan's research and wanting to help our friends, we began typing Palestine into internet search engines, and we discovered the truth. Dad was always searching for truth. The truth, for me, the truth that was most important from that trip was that Dad learned that America's place in the world was much more complex than what he had been led to believe growing up, and that the values we hold true in our Constitution as Americans of freedom, democracy, equality, and the right to self-determination have often not been practiced by the United States government in relation to the legitimate aspirations of other peoples to those same freedoms. I'm proud of the role I played along with my friends, in inspiring my parents to learn about the history of the Middle East, because it changed their worldview and made them better people. And consequently, through their activism, my parents brought many, many people to understand the truth about the dispossession of the Palestinian people and the need for a just solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, and also the importance of promoting social justice. Dad had a lot of great qualities, but our relationship had its ups and downs. I witnessed how the tragedy of Dad's slow decline due to dementia instilled in him a new sense of humility. And that humility enabled me to have an honest moment of closure with Dad during one of my many visits to Florida, when Dad was still able to carry on a conversation. One evening after dinner, I said, Dad, these are some of the things I really appreciated about you as a father, and the things that I cherish in my own life with my children. Dad paused and asked, with Mom listening by his side. He said, Dan, is there anything else you'd like to tell me about the things you did not appreciate me about me, or maybe the things you wish I would have done differently. I told Dad a few more things that evening, to which he listened to carefully, nodding as I spoke, and waited patiently until I had finished. Then he said in a very sincere tone, no forced profundity at all, I'm sorry, Dan, about those things. I hope you can forgive me. The next day, he had forgotten about that conversation as dementia had robbed him of the ability to form new memories. But there was a shift in our relationship, and I was at peace with my dad. Now Dad is at peace as well. I'm sure that he's in a better place, on his way to a better place, and that place that he loved to tell us about as children when he introduced us to the writings of C.S. Lewis, in particular, the Chronicles of Narnia. He loved those books. And in the words of Aslan, the lion to Reep the mouse in the Voyage of the Dawn Treader. I imagine Dad one day soon, or depends on what your belief is, but I imagine him already being welcomed into Aslan's country. Aslan said to Reep, my country was made for noble arts, such as yours. Bob, welcome. In the lion's name, come further up and further in. Thank you.
I'd like to invite my childhood friends to come up. I know Ted's going to share. Is Brian going to stand with him, or is he going to sit back? He's coming up. Come on. You going to come up, Brian? You're going to sit back. He's going to come up. Ted and Brian and I have been friends since second grade. And thankful for you being here tonight.
Yeah, please. Always had a fantastic relationship and experience with your father, with all of your father. And I know Jason was kind of boastfully telling the tales last night. Obviously, Bob did like to act as well. He was bitten by the acting bug, I think a little later in life, but my youngest brother in the town of Orange, where obviously family lived, actually was in the same play with him. I believe it was Little Abner, but Jay was correcting me that we think it might be Gypsy. I would have to ask my brother, but my brother couldn't have been much older than maybe 8th, 9th grade, and I know Bob was always great and took him under his wing, and it's something that my brother actually remembers kind of fondly when we'll pass by the old house on Grassy Hill Road, as he actually ended up to go on to be an actor, and he's actually been pretty successful out in Hollywood, but very similar to Bob and to Jason. He has a mission and a passion to help others. My youngest brother is disabled, and he created this disability film challenge to really offer the opportunity for those who maybe are disenfranchised or maybe didn't have the same opportunities for different roles. But I have just so many fond memories of that. And then obviously with the paddling that Bob did, I grew up sailing, and I sailed very small boats in Milford Harbor a lot, and I would say for the better part of 10 years or so, I couldn't go at least without 1 week without seeing Bob paddling up. Now, when I was thinking about it, I was kind of thinking about Bob's lightheartedness and how he was always able to kind of laugh at himself and get others to laugh with him. And I don't know why, but this memory is seared in my brain. I remember we were out on the playground at Turkey Hill School, probably 4th or 5th grade maybe, because we were 2 playgrounds, so I kind of remember the place, and I remember Jason must have forgotten his lunch or something. So Bob came and brought it, and we're sitting out there on the playground, and we're chumming around playing basketball, and I just remember, and I'll leave you with this, because I remember, after he gave the lunch, he's like, throw me that ball, and he was around half court. He goes, let me show you how we do it in Indiana, and lofts up this beautiful shot, complete brick. But he just laughed it off and just walked away. And I don't know why that memory, I was thinking about it, and And we were probably all ribbing Jay like, geez, your dad, come on. But you know what? He didn't have a care in the world. He just had a laugh and walked off. But that's how I guess they do it in Indiana. So I don't know why that memory is stuck in my head. It's something so like minute and really inconsequential, but for whatever reason, that's something that has just always stuck with me. And when I was thinking about coming here and talking tonight, that was one of the things I thought of, just because he always was so giving and so lighthearted. And I remember him toting us and Brian all over the world, and going with Dan to take a ferry over to New York to go see a science fiction convention. But I'm always left with that brick and how they do it in Indiana. So, so I'll leave you with that one.
I didn't want to come up here, but Jay put me on the spot. This is totally off the cuff. I think I'm a little bit struck by how much Bob and I are kind of similar in a lot of ways, and the tenacity and the opinions and so forth. I still call him Mr. Cork, and I always will. I shouldn't say Bob. But, you know, one of the things I remember most is, you know, kind of growing up in the 80s and spending a lot of time with him. He was kind of our Uber service, you know, with these, you know, a lot of lowrider cars like that needed like shocks, and, you know, before it was fashionable. And, you know, we kind of, you know, I think we agreed with most things on, you know, for the most part, but, you know, but I admired his opinions on things and how bold he was. And I just remember all the joy I had going to visit you. And, you know, the house in the 80s was kind of like, you know, one part Waltons. You know, there was just so many brothers and sisters around, and, you know, nieces and nephews. And then, you know, it was kind of like Jason was Gilligan and his father was Skipper, and he was always yelling at him. And then, and then all of his brothers would, you know, kind of gang up on him. But it was all so much fun, and I always, you know, kind of wanted a big family as a result of that. And you know, I always remember the way he used to yell your name. And obviously there's 6 of you that, you know, or 5 of you that know the way that sounds. But it sounds a little bit like the way Mr. Spacely used to yell at George Jetson. But instead of Jetson, it was Jason. And I'm just, and I think that he was, you know, maybe hardest on the last one, but, you know, everyone came out to be such a huge success. And I think that's really his legacy, is this tremendous success of all of his children. And at least I hope you're all, you know, at least I hope you're all you're faithful. At least I hope you're all faithful anyway, because that's really what I would judge to be a real success. Is not so much money, is that you live a life of faith and so forth. So I have nothing but respect and admiration for him, and those days I will always remember with a smile. Thank you. Thanks.
We've got another video to show you.
Turn out a clean
Danny, would you please stop your antics? Thank you. We just got back from dinner. Danny, I'm going to smack you in front of your brother. Jim, he's recording now. All right. We just got back from Curtis' house. We had a nice dinner up at Woodbury with everybody there. And everybody had a nice time, but it really wasn't complete without you there, Jim. We appreciate your call today. Glad you're doing well. And say hello to everybody, and we'll look forward to seeing you back in the States just as soon as you can get here. Real proud of you, and you take care of yourself.
Want to tell them, or do you want me to?
Go ahead. Tell the right person now.
I had just finished dinner at Julie's Luncheonette in New Haven, Connecticut on January 18th, right? 1961, right? And I walked across the street right in front of the Jewish Community Center this evening, and I just finished dinner. And in the street light, I saw this attractive young lady, long dark hair, green coat, fur collar, walking down the street. We've been married for 43 years because Willie was very tolerant, doesn't take him so long to grow up.
Are you going to introduce this part? Open chain. Oh, we've got an audio. We're gonna share an audio that Dad's brother Tom sent us today.
Hello, this is Tom Cork, and these are my reflections on my brother Bob. I am thankful that I am able to join you today, even though it be electronically. Joan and I regret that we are not able to be with you in Connecticut. I want to share some thoughts based on my position in the family of Max and Rebecca Cork, that being the youngest little brother, the position that Jason occupies in Bob and Willie's family. I'm sure Jason agrees with me that you see a lot in that position. I will focus on the decades of the 1950s. This is the 10-year period when Bob grew from 6 to 16, and I grew from 3 to 13. Bob and I spent a lot of time together in that decade. My earliest distinct memory is the car ride with Dad and Bob to pick up a puppy for the family. On the way home, I recall Dad suggesting we name the puppy Trixie, and by the time we got home, that decision was final. Bob and I each called Trixie my dog. Eventually, we discovered that he was really Mom's dog. With Trixie, we quickly learned some new respect for the part of our backyard that became the dogs area. Otherwise, the backyard was special for Joe, Bob, and me. The middle of the yard was always grassless and muddy, but it was primarily our personal baseball and football field. Occasionally, it became a wrestling arena or a soapbox derby project area. For one remarkable summer, it was a canoe rebuilding site. But even then, baseballs and footballs were often in the air. As we grew older, Dad introduced Bob and me to fishing. We learned how to cast for fish using spinning reels and lures. There exists a family picture of Bob and me proudly holding the largest bass we ever caught. It was 15 1/2 inches long. In the picture, Bob is proudly holding the fish by the mouth. I was holding up the tail. At the time, we disagreed about who caught the fish. In reality, I think the fish struck the lure while I was holding the rod. But it was Bob who saved the day by taking the rod from me and reeling it in. I don't know if I ever admitted that to him, but I guess I have now. During those years, it became a tradition that Dad, Joe, Bob, and I would go hunting for quail and rabbits on Thanksgiving. Walking through harvested cornfields and along railroad tracks, my job was to play bird dog and flush the quail. Everybody else carried a shotgun. So much for being the little brother. I will finish these reflections by reviewing an important time in my relationship with Bob. In the summer of 1958, I was getting ready to enter 7th grade, and Bob was getting ready for his junior year of high school. For 3 years, he had been responsible for a morning paper route involving the delivery of about 150 newspapers every day from a bicycle. In the summer of 1958, Bob transferred that route to me. The daily route began by getting up at 4:15 a.m. and getting a lot of things done by 6:30. There were some special activities and skills involved. Specifically, folding papers in a way that allowed carrying 150 of them in a canvas bag on the bicycle, and being capable of being tossed onto a porch from the sidewalk, and still being readable by the customer, was an art form that is probably lost in today's digital world. Bob taught me well, and by the end of that summer, I was on my own. But there was more to the job. The paper route was a small business in today's terms. In addition to delivering the papers, we had to collect payment from our customers on Saturday and pay the newspaper company for our papers by 1:30 Saturday afternoon. The difference was our earnings. If we were not persistent in collecting our weekly fees from our customers, we came up short, and that came out of our earnings. Throughout the transition, Bob taught me to focus on the customer. He taught me that if we folded the papers neatly, delivered them on time, and carefully to the porches or stoops, and were courteous when collecting, then the customers would pay us on time and even give us big tips at Christmas time. Fail on any of those measures, and the profits would not come in. In other words, service your customers. I think those words were his lifetime motto. In the summer of 1958, I listened and learned. I found that to know and understand the customer is always important. In my military and business careers, I found it very useful and appropriate to always consider the customers I was working for. Now, and for the last time, I thank Bob for that valuable guidance in the summer of 1958. I want to conclude with a poem that I read at my brother Joe's Celebration of Life service in 2017. For them, their canoe restoration project was their defining moment. I now dedicate this to both of my brothers. Another native of Indiana, Susan K. Bolton, wrote this poem that begins, "Voyager upon life's sea, to yourself be true, and where'er your lot may be, paddle your own canoe. Never, though the winds may rave, falter nor look back, but upon the darkest wave, leave a shining track." Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. We'd like to take a few moments. If anybody would like to share a few words or a story about Dad, you can come up to the orange mic. And in between, I may be playing some selections from the 3 shows that Dad did. He only did shows with one female name in the title, Annie, Mame, and Gypsy. So the orange mic is open.
June 1, 1962. That was the date that my father adopted me. He made the conscious, purposeful decision to be my dad that day for always. A lifelong commitment to love and be my dad. Never did he ever mention the word adoption or stepdad or anything of the like. He always loved me fully and unconditionally. I was his daughter. I felt like he gave me an extra measure of love. My dad loved me so much and so completely that his love filled the dad role to overflowing. Here's a quote from the lawyer Robert Blackman. "Father is the noblest title a man can be given. It is more than a biological role. It signifies a patriarch, a leader, an exemplar, a confidant, a teacher, a hero, a friend." My dad was persistent, hardworking, inquisitive about the world, creative and friendly to everyone. He had a great sense of humor and was always someone that I could depend on. Unlike my brothers who have a wonderful gift of speaking, my dad gave me the quiet gift of the love of the outdoors. As I grew up, I went hiking and camping, canoeing, kayaking, always engaged with outdoor activities at summer camp or with Pathfinders or with my dad. Now as an adult, I love to go hiking. I hike in a state park near my home as often as I can, and I always think of my dad. One snowy evening in Connecticut when I was about 4 or 5, my dad and I went for a walk. I still remember this night, the crisp, cool air, and my dad talking to me. I don't know what he said, but I remember him talking the way he talks and laughs and his humor. And after that walk, my dad wrote a poem called A Winter Walk about that evening. This poem was published in the New Haven Register in 1964, and I'd like to share it with you now. A Winter Walk by Bob Cork. She watches the river round a bend, swiftly moving, absorbing the snow. She's laughing at the calm bayou, covered by a sheet of ice, a playground for the blowing wind and snow. Mallards are nestled among the reeds, lonely and black against the snow, as still as decoys, but she knows that feathers harbor vibrant life, shivering from the blowing wind and snow. The black barren trees and darkened sky, illuminated by the snow, but warmest, brightest is the glow from my daughter's sparkling eyes, enchanted by the blowing wind and snow. Thank you. I have a copy of the poem if you'd like it. I've included a little bit of Cork, a little bit of our heart, if you'd like one later. Thank you.
Take it slow, you got it.
is one of Dad's favorite songs.
Oh Lord my God, when I in awesome wonder consider all the worlds thy hands have made, I see the stars, I hear the rolling thunder, thy power throughout his universe displayed. Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! When through the woods and forest glades I wander and hear the birds sing sweetly in the trees, when I look down from lofty mountains' grandeur and hear the brook and feel the gentle breeze, then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art! How great thou art! Then when I think that God his Son not
Thank you, Joy. Mike and Michelle?
All right, well, we don't have anything well prepared here. We just decided to come up here randomly and,
Drag me up here.
yeah. Well, that wasn't a drag, but anyway, so we have a lot of great memories, but if you would like to start, I don't want to be accused of taking all the good stories, so.
Wow.
Well, Bob was always sincere to me and everybody, and I remember a lot of his children's stories, and there's this one story that he told, and I wish I had found it right now and I could read it. It was about this beer, and it had this southern drawl to it. As you said, it was just so funny. But everything about Bob reflects in his family, I'll say. And we've had great times over their house. And was it you that was saying about the Easter Sunday thing? And I remember that time. They had this big pancake breakfast out there and everything like that. And then soon as it was all over with, it wasn't all over with, we got to see a baby cow born. Yeah. And it was just, it's just one of those special moments that you reflect on. And that's how we feel about Bob, too. He's just, there was always something to look back and think about, something that he said, whether it was in Pathfinders or whatever. He was very instructional in telling you how to do things, but without making you feel like, do it this way or else forget about it. So.
Yeah, Bob, one thing wonderful about Bob was that he shared, like, anytime he had a good children's, well, they always were good, but Mike would always say, that was a great story, Bob, and he would always make sure that he got Mike a copy. You know, he would share his gifts. Like, he didn't hoard so many things to himself and be like, I have all this knowledge and all this storytelling and hold it in. He would always just be so willing to make copies and share. And, you know, we have books at our house that he has given to us because we're like, oh, we like that story. Oh, yeah, what was in this book? So you can have this book. And there's just so many things. Like, it's almost like we can't talk about one Cork without talking about the Cork family in general. When Mike and I first came into the church, it was 1984, and so some of the older Corks were kind of moving on with their life, and we got to kind of know the younger section of the Cork family quite well. And wasn't long before we were recruited to be part of the Pathfinders, and so we got to have some great experiences with...
And we never told anybody, Jason, about that fire with you and John.
Oh, no. And so, you know, we started with Pathfinders, and so we just, you know, we're new into the church, and, you know, we just had wonderful people and the Cork family, and Bob and Willie would sit together, and you know, and even though, you know, Bob was the storyteller, you know, Willie was that glue, you know, all the time there, you know, she was just that steady person. And then, you know, with their kids, they were always so proud of every single one, and even as the ones we didn't know as much, we would always hear about, and they just loved you guys so much. And you know, it's just even so wonderful to have to see you all even under these circumstances, because it kind of just puts it together, because it's been so many years since, you know, we've seen you all. And you know, when Bob and Willie moved to Florida, you know, it put a gap. It was a gap in our church. And you know, we've missed them, and you know, we've missed you all. And then, you know, Jason was back here for a while, and you know, my kids just learned to love him and his music, and you know, we appreciate that too. And there's just so many things. You know, they opened their home to us so many times, and they were so unassuming and just very kind. And as my mom used to say about her family, is like, my family are my jewels, and I know for Bob and Willie, you guys are their jewels. And I just wish you the best going forward, and and you've made them proud for sure. And just thank you guys for bringing this back here and giving us an opportunity to say, thank you to your dad as well as your mom. So that's it.
Pam asked, Amy asked if I was going to read the bear story. No. Rather, Tom's video reminded me of something that my dad did write a column where he talked about that picture of Tom and him fishing. And this is from a column that he had in the Terre Haute Star back in the late 60s, early 70s. Called Outdoors in the Valley, where he adopted the persona of the Kickapoo clodhopper, telling stories of the outdoors. This was December 24th, 1970. Christmas Eve. It would be a pleasure to be able to believe that on his birthday Friday, the Prince of Peace could stop all the bitter conflicts among men, and that henceforth the only uses of firearms would be for sporting purposes. Unfortunately, the only thing we can be sure of is that the world will temporarily shift into neutral from its sophisticated journey on a path called progress, and that love will be evident among families. That uniquely human attribute of being able to express love through the generous giving and grateful acceptance of gifts is something that far surpasses in brilliance the colorful lights and decorations we use to signify the Christmas season. Christmas morning throughout the valley will bring dreams and memories into the thoughts of many sportsmen. Somewhere a teenage boy will be thrilled with his first shotgun. He will handle it like a carton of eggs, caressing the warm wood stock and forearm, and before the day is over, he will have cleaned the gun at least a dozen times. He will dream of hunts in woodlands and fields. Somewhere an elderly fisherman will be delighted with the new tackle box given by thoughtful grandchildren. He will pick up the lures inside one at a time and think of the warm days next spring and wonder if one of these lures will be the one that finally helps him realize a lifelong ambition of landing a lunker bass. Somewhere a boy will be gentle as he cares for a young pup that arrived with a Christmas bow attached to his collar. The boy will dream of happy journeys into the wild with his faithful companion. But Christmas brings memories too, and somewhere in the valley there will be joyous recollections of big bass and trophy deer and the many splendors of nature. In at least one home, amidst the excitement generated by young children, a sportsman will, for the first of many Christmases yet to come, pause and reflect on the memories of experiences shared with his father, the man who introduced him to hunting and fishing. That home will be mine. And, if you readers will pardon the personal interjections into this Christmas Eve column, I would like to share a few of those memories with you, because many of you have had similar experiences in your family. The first fishing trips I can recall with Dad were the weekly Sunday excursions to a strip pit east of Terre Haute. On one of those trips, Dad caught a pretty good-sized bass. I don't remember how much it weighed, but I know it was a big one. Dad took a picture of my younger brother and I holding the fish, and for years afterwards proudly showed the picture to friends. On one of our first hunting trips, Dad spent more time driving around Saline City trying to find what had once been a good spot that we did traipsing through the fields. Dad had a way of pretending he wasn't lost that was very convincing. Some things are inherited. I can vividly remember watching Dad point out to me the telltale signs of quail and rabbits. I can hear his whistling for quail and his chattering for squirrels, and his calls were so natural that each time in the future I hear a bob white or squirrel, I will think of Dad. We shared many excursions together, but there were really too few. I'm sure the ones which brought Dad the greatest feelings of pride were the last outings. Late this past summer, we went fishing, and Dad was proud that his son's stringer was more impressive after the trip than was the teacher's. Thanksgiving Day was our last hunting trip together, and I'm sure Dad was proud that the only game taken that day was bagged by his son. This was going to be an especially proud Christmas for Dad, because he'd been making plans to get a pup for my 9-year-old son. Dad knew that his grandson would be happy with companionship that can only be shared by a boy and his dog. Dad is gone now. He died just a couple of days before that Christmas of a heart attack at 55. But his wish for Christmas will be fulfilled, because Friday morning a boy will be getting acquainted with a frisky pup that will be wearing a tag on her collar that reads, "To Bill with love from Grampy." And that was his first writing, reflecting on the passing of his own dad.
Hi, I'm George Platt, a fellow church member and great friend of Bob's. And on behalf of the New Haven Seventh-day Adventist Church, I'd like to welcome the Cork family back home, and I'd like to welcome all our visitors here also. Thank you for coming. The best word that comes to mind to describe Bob is passionate. Bob was passionate about his family. He was passionate about his faith. He was passionate about his work. And he was passionate about his writing. And he was passionate about his many, many hobbies, like woodworking, canoeing, kayaking, and there's probably so much more that I have no idea of, but I'm sure the family can appreciate it. But think about this. One of his stressors was, if you have this much passion, how do you put it all in an average day? You know? And there's a great quote from Warren Buffett that says, without passion, you don't have energy. And without energy, you have nothing. The second word I would think to describe Bob is a creative. And I worked closely with Bob on marketing for my company. Bob acted as a copywriter, and he also conceived a lot of things. And in the heyday of UConn women's basketball, we mailed 1,500 signed basketballs by Rebecca Lobo. I mean, it wasn't personally signed, but it had her signature on it. And Bob wrote a great letter, and we sent it out, a very memorable campaign, and it did good things for the Hardy Press, and it was great. But Bob, we were into lumpy packages, and we mailed arrows, we mailed kites, we mailed golf balls. And last night I brought a little kit, like a sequenced mailing of 4 different boxes, where Bob wrote 4 different letters. One had a feather in it, one had a globe, one had a mini set of tools, And I didn't realize this. I thought Bob did it, but I heard last night that the family helped out putting these packs together because it had foam. There was foam inside the boxes, and the foam was cut to fit the exact piece that would went into it. Oh boy! If I had more time, I'd probably talk about a little bit about a Sabbath school. There was a Sabbath school upstairs in the pastor's study before this church was renovated. And in it, there were a few really starch conservatives in the class, and there was a bunch of liberals as well. We have both spectrums. And Bob, could slide. He could fit wherever, depending on the issue. But I have this vision, I can still see it. Bob would get redder and redder and redder, and his face would get beet red, and he'd be raising his hand, and no one would be recognizing him. It would just get redder and redder and redder. But, and this is one of those classes where we talked about, the spirit, is it the capital S, or is it the lower S? Is it the lowercase s? A lot of people from the liberal side, we will be talking about Kierkegaard. So, I mean, it was a great Sabbath school class. It really was. And I enjoyed my collaboration with Bob. I enjoyed my friendship. We went to UConn basketball games together. And on the rides home, it was a very quick ride because Bob Bob could talk. It wasn't, there was no dead air in the car. But, Bob was a great friend, and I know he's resting in peace, and I think that's a beautiful thing for all the stuff that he had to go through. And I'd like to bless the family. It's so great seeing everybody here today, and I hope we don't lose contact. And now we're going to share a few songs with you. The first one's a medley. Don't get nervous, it goes pretty fast.
I'll just pick this puppy up. Right here. Well, I'll just introduce the group. I'm with him. And my name is Debbie.
To introduce you?
No, I'm doing it. I'm Debbie, George's wife. Oh, that's true. This is Steve Baldino, formerly of, what was the name of that band? B. Willie Smith? B. Willie Smith. Used to tour the country. And now look where he is. And this is Tony Walker. We're all church members and friends of Bob.
Have you been through Jesus for the cleansing power? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you fully trusting in His grace this hour? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Are you washed?
Are you washed
in the blood?
In the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb?
Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Lay aside the garment that are stained with sin
And be washed in the blood of the Lamb.
There's a fountain flowing for the soul on peace. Oh, be washed in the blood of the Lamb. Are you washed?
Are you washed
In the blood.
in the blood, in the soul cleansing blood of the Lamb?
Are your garments spotless? Are they white as snow? Are you washed in the blood of the Lamb? Sunglasses life is over, I'll fly away to my home on God's listening shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I rise. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. Just a few more weary days and then I'll fly away to a land where joys will never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I rise. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I rise. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away when I rise. Hallelujah, by and by. I'll fly away.
I will fly away.
We're going to sing Shall We Gather at the River. So feel free to join in.
Shall we gather at the river, where bright angels feet are trod, with his crystal tide forever, flowing by the throne of God. Sing it. Yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. On the margin of the river, washing up the silver spray, we will walk and worship ever all the happy golden days. Yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Ere we reach the shining river, lay we every burden down. Grace our spirit will deliver and provide our robe and crown. Sing it with us. Yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God. Soon we'll reach the shining river. Soon our pilgrimage will cease. Soon our happy hearts will quiver with the melody of peace. Yes, we will gather at the river, the beautiful river. Gather with the saints at the river that flows by the throne of God.
Let's have another hand for George and Debbie and their son. An acquaintance. Great guitar solo, by the way. Thank you. Hi, my name is Rob. I'll be your skipper, your alligator wrestler, quite possibly your swimming instructor. We'll be gone about 2 weeks, so I hope you bought plenty of provisions. For those of you that don't know, that's how the Jungle Cruise opens at Walt Disney World, and I took about 1,600 trips around there, so I kind of remember the jokes. I had never been to Disney World. My parents went in 1978 and brought us all back our first Mickey Mouse t-shirts. And I did not been to Disney World, so I did not know what I was going to expect when I went on the Disney College program. I just know I was going to be in attractions. I had already done some theater. And I get to Florida, and I open the notebook, and it says Jungle Cruise Skipper. I had no idea what that meant, but boy, was I happy. Like many other jobs, we just went around and around and around in circles all day. And two of my favorite jokes, and by the way, I'm the closer, we're almost done. Two of my favorite jokes was, at the end of the ride, we said, well, folks, we're coming to the end of the Jungle Cruise. You see, we have a dock on the left and a dock on the right. We call that a paradox. For all of you Back to the Future fans, you'll know what I mean. The second one was, the dock was made of hickory wood. And if it rained, it became very slippery, so you had to be careful because it was then a hickory slippery dock. Now, I could go on all night, but as Sheila Garvey in the back knows, I do a one-person play about Will Rogers, so go to willrogersusa.info, and you can hire me to speak for about an hour as Will Rogers. Okay. Now, what I want to say are just a couple of things. You heard that my dad did soapbox derby. And he built cars, and there's a picture of him in the fellowship hall, cars, and coast down the hill. And one of the people that he raced against was the ball player Tommy John. And my dad said, I like to think that Tommy John winning that race gave him the competitive edge he needed to go on into baseball. That's how my dad would inspire people with stories. So one thing I noticed tonight is my dad inspired a lot of people, didn't he? And I know what's going on in heaven right now. He's telling some stories. Whether you believe he's there now or later on doesn't matter much, because for him, it's instant, isn't it? He's at peace now, and we're all grateful. When I was 10 years old, I was in the Pinewood Derby. Anybody ever in the Pinewood Derby? It's like the soapbox derby, but it's miniature, okay? And they give you a block of wood, and they say, whittle this into a shape, put it on wheels, and we're going to race it down a track at our next Cub Scout meeting. I started to get out the knife and started to whittle this block of wood, and it was not easy. And I got frustrated and impatient. My dad took the block of wood to the power bandsaw and made this. And that was the bicentennial year, so this was our bicentennial project, and there's my name on the bottom. Now, I was a little bit mad because my dad took over my project. Are there any sons out there that know what I mean? But this car won third place. And he put a little extra weight in the bottom. What you can't see is that was the secret. He put a little weight in there. This car, and I'll tell you the rest of the story in a minute, but this car sat in a shoebox for many years, all broken and everything. And then one year I found some wheels in a hobby shop, and I said, Dad, would you restore this for me? And he restored it and put the wheels and new axles on, and he built this base for me to proudly present that car. The closing to the story, pardon me. The closing to the story is when we went to the meeting of the Cub Scouts and saw all the cars lined up on the desk, there was one car that had not been carved one bit. It was a block of wood with watercolor paint. Very, roughly done. And it had wheels on it, but it had no shape to it. And it was done by my friend Danny Brown. His parents were divorced. he didn't have a dad around. His dad was not around to make a car for him. He did it himself. It was the most beautiful car I ever saw. And I got to tell you, I wasn't mad at my dad ever again about what he did with that bandsaw because of Danny Brown's car. I've never forgotten that kid. And so having a dad is a pretty cool thing. You saw a few minutes ago a video of my dad demonstrating milking in the fellowship hall. I had not seen that video since we did the talent show. Jason was involved in the first talent, we call it the talent show, and I came in the next year, and these were the very first Cork Brothers productions. Rough as they were, crazy as they were, but what I remember is a lot of people participated. Dan played Julia Child in a reproduction of the famous Dan Aykroyd skit. Oh, I seem to have cut myself. Go to YouTube and check it out. So, the point is that this is how we started. We all have places where we have to start. And I am so proud to be with Jason tonight, and so proud of what we started here in this church of giving to all of you, because you have given so much back to us over the years. What you may not know is my dad started us in theater. My dad worked for State Industrial Supply, and in 1990, one of his customers came in and said, I'm in a barbershop chorus called the Coastal Chordsmen, and we're doing a show called The Music Man. It's a one-night show, and the chorus is going to sing the songs from The Music Man. We've hired a professional quartet, award-winning quartet called Bluegrass Student Union, to come in and sing the actual songs from the show, and we'll sing the backups. But what we don't have are actors. Now, you know the Cork brothers are not shy about trying something new. So they brought in me and Jason into the show. My dad came home and said, would you guys like to do it? We hadn't done much theater yet, but he knew we were up for it. So we went into that show, and Jason played Tommy Gilas, and I played Marcellus, and I still have the jacket, and I would have worn it, but it doesn't fit anymore. I bought it at the Hadassah thrift shop in New Haven, and it even still had a cigar burn on the sleeve from the gentleman that owned it before me. So that's how it started. And a few weeks ago, after my dad passed, I stayed a few extra days, and I stayed in Milford, about a mile away from the government auditorium in Milford, the Veterans Auditorium, where the show was, and that's the first time I've been walked by there since 1990. And what an amazing feeling that was. And my dad, we owe a lot to our dad because of that. Jason and I have done a lot of shows together, and in a few moments we're going to show the last video and bring a song together. But I want to mention just a couple of things of people that, some quotes that came to mind or things that came to mind. And I cannot let the evening end without mentioning Eric Kirchberg, my friend, who may have been here tonight. He had surgery today on his foot. It's been a long-going problem with Eric and his foot, and he's doing better. So God bless Eric. Let's say a prayer for him. Eric Kirchberg and I were big space buffs, as my nephew Joseph is a space buff as well. And Eric and I would sit here in these pews and look over at those windows. Now, they're not lit up, but Eric said, Rob, did you ever notice that the center column looks kind of like the space shuttle with the solid rocket boosters? And the one on the right looks kind of like the orbiter. Now you'll never look at those in the same way again. But Eric was a big space buff, and we spent a lot of time together in this church. And the Kirchberg family and the Cork family go back to the time my mom was first coming to this church. And Eric and I went to Amity High School together for 1 year, and Sherry knows him as well. And so we send our blessings to Eric today. The other thing I want to say about quotes, when I was in junior high school, I made a total of 4 points, and there's a story about it that we could share another time, but it was in the Chicago Tribune, and my dad wrote it. And it was the Durand Bulldogs in Durand, Illinois, and they put anybody on the team that wanted to play. And I made 4 points, and one of them was in the Chicago Tribune because of my dad. My 8th grade friend, Troy Bridges, I told him about my dad's passing. My dad and me and Troy and his dad used to go to games together with Indiana or the Harlem Globetrotters, and we had a father-son kind of date with the 4 of us. And he said, I told him about my dad, and he said, your dad was a great man. When I was in the Army, I was not very strong in the upper body. I'm still not. And the biggest challenge to me in basic training was the push-ups. You had to do 40 push-ups. I almost didn't make it. And when I came back from doing the push-ups, I yelled up the stairs to the drill sergeant, I did 40 push-ups. It's the only time the drill sergeant didn't cuss me out for talking too loud, okay? His name was Sergeant Wolfschlag. I'll never forget that name. A little guy, and I was so happy that I wrote to my dad, but I didn't remember it until 3 weeks ago that I had wrote to him when I came home, and I looked through the papers, and my dad said in 2006 via email, probably one of the trailing end of his emails that I got from him, he said, I remember getting your news about push-ups. I think then it was realized your possibilities were endless. And to read that after the fact is a blessing. My theater teacher is here, Sheila Garvey, in the yellow sweater back there. And Sheila knows the story I'm going to tell, but I have to tell it. When I started college, you had to take some kind of an arts course required, and I took a theater history course. It was my first semester in college, and I didn't do the projects. Ernie, what happens if you don't do the projects? You don't pass. I flunked my first theater class, and Sheila Garvey was the teacher, and she's here tonight. Now, that's the first part of the story. The second part is Corks don't give up. And this one's known as the unsinkable cork from the Army. I took an intro to performance class, and the bug bit me. Later on in college, Sheila directed me in a play, and we stayed in touch. And a few years ago, I needed some help with my Will Rogers play. I was kind of stuck. I do a one-man play about Will Rogers, and I was kind of stuck. And I went to Sheila, and I said, I need some help. Do you know someone who can, coach me? And she said, well, would you like me to do it? So she did. And she gave me some coaching in her living room over several sessions, and my play and my life is so much better because of her, and I didn't give up. So thank you, Sheila. And for Sheila, I want to tell one of my last 2 little stories about my dad and Will Rogers. So in 2012, I did my first iteration of Will Rogers USA, cut it down to about 50 minutes that I could do at a fringe festival in DC, and it was 2012. And I decided that I wanted my mom and dad to see this show. So this was about 10 years after my dad's injury. So he was already losing his memory, as Jason and others had talked about. And I have great pictures of them at the show with me. And then my dad went to the next couple of shows as my roadie. He wasn't very good because his attention was kind of fading out. But at the end of the first day, we were having dinner after seeing the show, and he said, Rob, what are we going to do tomorrow? We're going to go canoeing? I said, yeah, we'll go canoeing in the morning, and then later in the day, you're going to come to see my Will Rogers show. I'm going to get to see your show? He had totally forgotten that he had seen my show that day. So for the next 3 days, my dad saw a brand new show every day. What a blessing of memory loss that he got to experience that with me. And I'll never forget that. And at the end of each of those shows, and this is for Sheila, I would say, well, I think it's time to wrap up this little clam bake, folks. And I tell you, if you've had any laughs at all, I'm very grateful. Now, I don't give advice, But if I did, I would just say that you're only on this earth for a very short time. For heaven's sakes, have a few laughs, folks. And don't take things too serious, especially yourselves. Just live your life so that you would not be ashamed to sell the family parrot to the town gossip. That's Will Rogers. Before we bring this evening to a close, on behalf of our family, thank you all for being here tonight to help us celebrate the life of an amazing man. And as my dad often said, and as we said to him as he passed away, way to go, Cork. And our thanks to the members of the church. Let's have a hand, please, for the members of the church for welcoming us here tonight, both tonight and, if you can believe it, almost 4 years ago when my mom passed away, and we were so I know we were all so shocked and grieved that she was gone within days, and she would have loved today to be with us. And my mom and dad are together now, and that's a blessing. There's a picture in the other room of my mom and dad in a canoe. It was the only time we got my mom in a canoe with my dad, so we got a picture of it. So it'll be in the other room when we finish. We hope you'll join us in a few minutes for some refreshments and fellowship following the program. Now, Bob Cork found inspiration in the stories of others. We would like to leave you tonight with a few moments from his favorite stories and ours.
That's the last video. Go ahead.
Your Eminence, ever since I can remember, I have dreamt of seeing your country. I've had many great adventures in this world, but nothing has dampened that yearning. I know I am hardly worthy, but with your permission, I would lay down my sword for the joy of seeing your country with my own eyes.
My country was made for noble hearts such as yours.
So where does the power come from to see the race to its end? From within. Jenny, I believe God made me for a purpose. But he also made me fast. And when I
run. I feel his pleasure.
All that matters is that we follow the quest.
What does that mean, the quest?
It is the mission of each true knight, his duty, nay, his privilege. We have the words here on the screen. We invite you to sing along with us today as we all leave inspired. To dream the impossible dream, to fight the unbeatable foe, to bear with unbearable sorrow, to run where the brave dare not go, to right the unrightable wrong, to love pure and chaste from afar, to try when your arms are too weary, to reach the unreachable star. This is my quest, to follow that star, no matter how hopeless, no matter how far, to fight for the right without question or pause, to be willing to march into hell for a heavenly cause. And I know if I'll only be true to this glorious quest, that my heart will lie peaceful and calm when I'm laid to my rest. And the world will be better for this, that one man, scorned and covered with scars, to strove with his last ounce of courage, to reach the unreachable stars. Now that was a show.
That was a show. Just close it up and to the reception.
All right, so we've got some refreshments in the fellowship hall. Thank you for coming. We love you all. Thank you.